Y'all. It is Thursday. It's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Figured I'd come on for a little bit and give folks some well wishes on this holiday. Wet out here. I'm headed out of town to spend some time with friends. Really, at this point, they long have since been family. My oldest friend, Rod, shout out to him. Since met him when I was 9 years old. So we're talking about 40 years here. That's a long time to be friends with somebody. You know, a lot of folks kind of fall off over the years, and this is one that has not. But I actually do tend to keep some pretty long friendships, relationships with folks. So yeah, I'm heading out of town now, driving. I'm glad it's not raining right now, but it's wet, so I'm gonna be careful. Got my sparkling cider. That's my standard bring wit for the holidays. It's a beautiful day out here. Sun shining. It's a little overcast, but the colors are out. Keep telling y'all, fall is my favorite season. So I were on the podcast yesterday, and we were talking about being thankful. And what's really good for me with the podcast, Layla and I talk all the time, but sometimes I think when there's other people around or there's other people that can hear, kids might actually tell you what they're thinking uh, more so sometimes than at other times, right? And so I like having those discussions with her because she'll just let some things out. So thinking about what she's thankful for, uh, I'm appreciative of that. Of course, I'm thankful for Layla. But it got me wondering and thinking. And there's all this talk that's centered around resiliency. Resiliency in um, relationships, sustainability, and the things that we do. Um, Sustainability or resiliency in what happens if we have a natural disaster, resiliency in traumas that we go through in our lives. And I think sometimes when we want to help, we end up sugarcoating things so much. Thinking about in regards to resiliency, oh, well, you just praise him anyway. No matter what you go through, you just praise him anyway. And so many millions of, God-fearing black folks in the church, you know, will always live in poverty, always live with bad health, always struggle. Well, their kids will continue in the cycle of poverty. And it's like, so are they really resilient? Or are they just learning how to just deal with it? You're just coming through the other side. You're just surviving. You're just existing. And if you're not dead, well, you have no choice but to come through the other side. Because why doesn't a person's situation change? Why do you see people continue to go through the same issues time over and over again and process it the exact same way? And we know who the people are that constantly have drama in their lives and keep it up drama, right? We talk about them as just, it just seems like they love drama. So to me, that's not being resilient. That's just, you're just going through stuff. And because you're still here, people are mislabeling that resiliency. So I'll give you an example. And I use a lot of baby boomers and, us Gen Xers are starting to get older. And we say how resilient we were childhood traumas we've had, traumas and things that we've gone through, being young adults, making mistakes, being stupid. And, oh, we're so resilient. And people listen to your life story and they say, oh, you were so resilient and you're so strong that you were able to endure and you came through this and you're doing this and you're doing that. And then I look at the state of our baby boomers now. I look at the state of many of our Gen Xers. And from a mental standpoint, they're not in a good place. They're not in a good place. They're bitter. They don't trust. They're in pain. Maybe they're on medication, mood stabilizers. So were they really resilient, or are we selling our folks a bill of goods and telling them that their harsh experiences is resiliency? I think we have to start telling some hard truths that we haven't been telling. See, we've gone through this. We need safe spaces, and you can't be critical. Well, you can be critical on things like racism and the isms. That you can be critical on. But if someone wants to be critical about the individual, but that's a problem, right? Or if you want to be critical about someone who isn't part of the ism, then that's an issue. Black women, black men, whatever, black community, as examples. So we need to be accountable. And we need to be able to hold people accountable. We need to be able to hold ourselves accountable. I don't know, do you agree with that? And through accountability and through people actually doing the work, that will be the demonstration of resiliency. But what we're not seeing is resiliency. We see very few. We see the success stories. The person that was the drug dealer, the person who grew up in poverty, the person who uh, the other side. is. And I'm not saying if you aren't middle class or upper middle class, you're not resilient. That's what I'm saying. Because there are people that are in the working class or the working poor that are resilient. But I think we've given a blanket definition to resiliency to anyone that's just gone through something. And I don't think it's really helping. So I think it's time for a hard truth. You know, the dominant society does a lot of studies and research. And, you know, I was in a meeting yesterday, shout out to Okoye, and we were talking about, you know, doing much of this hard work in the community that needs to be done. And she was telling me about root psychology, and shout out to Dr. Mims. I'm going to get into reading about what root psychology is. I don't know what it is. And saying that we need to tap into, you know, the ancestral way of doing things. And so I'm interested in learning what that is. Because I think we've been steered wrong by going along to get along. You know, if folks have told you to do things in a certain way or told a group of people to do things in a certain way and it hasn't worked out for them or has done things to them and then says, well, you know what, you can be fixed by doing this. You just need to do these things now and everything will be okay. Why would we believe that? Why would we believe that? When I think about our indigenous population and the work that they continue to do, that they are now sharing out more and more with the rest of society on how they process and work through things, their culture. And I think we need to identify that and embrace that and use some of those techniques to find our way. You know, there was a time when we all agreed, for the most part, you know, you're going to spank your children, you're going to whoop your kids. And the thought was, well, there's lots of thoughts, but you know, you're gonna whoop your kids. I'm gonna beat you so the cops don't get you. Now we don't do that anymore, and we don't do a lot of things anymore. Very few of our families do that, right? We've embraced the dominant society of. I remember it used to be stand in the corner, you know, time out. Like you just talk to them like they're little adults. And by and large, many of us didn't agree with that, right? I remember when, you know, my dad has always been in the public school system, right? So either as a teacher, administrator, principal, whatever. And he would whoop us. He didn't play that. My principal used to spank me, you know, definitely a different time. But as that changed, as that was becoming unpopular, as, you know, the police would get called, or, you know, kids could call the police on their parents, right? I mean, these pendulums switch, you know, they shift, right? So when something new happens, it you know, people go crazy with it, find some equilibrium as it kind of comes back a little bit. But my dad was not playing. He's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna beat you. And you know, here's the phone. You can go ahead and call the cops if you want. There's worse hotels than mine. And he meant that thing. And so he disciplined us in the way that he disciplined us. And I appreciate it. I do. I didn't at the time. But who does, right? No one wants to get put in the corner or put on restriction or whatever the case may be. But the point is as this new research and this new ways of doing things, these new pseudo sciences come along and tell us the best way to raise our children and to get ourselves as a people or as a community out of the situations that we find ourselves in, it just fall further. YOLO, doing what you want to do, and you've dug this big hole, why would your expectation be that you're going to get out of it in a year, 6 months, 3 months? Why do you think that just because now you're done with that, it's all of a sudden going to get easier? Because you want something different, now it's going to be easy. That's not how life works. And I think that's the reason why so many people fail and they find comfort in their situation. They start justifying, well, you know what? It is what it is. Look, I tried. I tried hard for 2 weeks, 2 months. Man, I'm good. This is too hard. I deserve this. Or they'll say it's outside of their locus of control, right? Well, I'm trying to change, but this person, these people, this organization, no one's allowing me to change. But you got to put the time in. So the question is are you worth it? Are you worth the time? It's Thanksgiving. We're talking about gratitude. What are your abilities? Do you have your mind? You have the ability to learn? Are you charismatic? Do you get along with folks? Take stock of your knowledge, skills, and abilities. Figure out what you want to do and not what other people want you to do. Because it's really hard for you to do that. Some people can, right? They're so motivated by peer pressure or what other people think of them that drives them to do what they have to do. Some people can use that, but most people can't, right? Because when that person isn't there or is no longer a factor or you decide, you know what, this is just too hard, I don't want to keep doing this anymore, then that person is no longer going to matter. So what is true resiliency? Because you have transferable skills. What is it that you've gone through in your life? What situation have you navigated that was tough, that when you got out of the other side, you learned from it, and if you went through it again, you dealt with it with a higher level of emotional intelligence, and because of that, you had a different outcome, or more positive outcome. It could be chronic illness, right? Something you're going to go over repeatedly. So every time, maybe, for the first time you're dealing with whatever, emotionally you're destroyed. Physically, you're already destroyed, right? Then you get stabilized through, however, medicine, doctors, physical therapy, whatever, treatment, and you go on about your life until it happens again. Do you process it the exact same thing? Or do you truly have resiliency where you know that it's coming, or when it comes, that you know what you're going to do to navigate it, that you aren't mentally paralyzed from it when it comes upon you? Not saying that it may not physically hurt any less, but the way that you attack the situation from a thought standpoint, which will direct your action, to me, that's resiliency. But if you are, oh man, I'm not used to going across this bridge into Seattle. I just don't do it that often, right? And I'm recording. So I'm like, oh man, that thing says Seattle. So I jumped over to Seattle. Now I'm in the carpool lane. So hopefully I don't get a ticket for driving in the carpool lane. Now, if I get pulled over, I will give as many copas as I can. But we'll see. All I can do is what I do, right? But that's the thing. It is what it is. Some people would make this mistake and lose their minds and go crazy. It'll suck to get a $200 ticket or whatever it is for driving in the carpool lane. It will. But there's nothing I can do about it. And what I would tell you is that that's my resiliency, right? I use being cut off in traffic all the time. So now I was able to get off of that. And being in the carpool lane when you go to Seattle, I mean, you're like on some bridge, so there's no way to get off of it, right? I mean, you just straight busted. But now I'm on the other side by the Tacoma Dome, and I was able to merge over and get out of the carpool lane. It's all good. And I've watched this unravel so many people, just little things like this. And so, what am I thankful for? I'm thankful for actual resiliency, able to take stock happened in my life and things that I've had to go through that were tough. And I'm not saying that every situation that happens, I'm going to respond well in. But the more control that you have over your emotions, the more powerful you are. And the more locus of control you have over your own life. There's a question You're on the sea and you're a boat. And the question is as the wind blows, does the wind and the sea blow you wherever? You have no control. You're trying to go straight. It's pushing you to the left. It's pushing you to the right. It's pushing you backwards. Or do you have control? Do you steer your boat regardless of the wind, regardless of the sea? Sure, you have to deal with it. You're going to have to row harder. It's going to take a little longer. It's going to take more effort. But that's that locus of control, right? The external factor is you can't control the wind, you can't control the sea, but you can control your effort toward it. You can control your attitude toward it. To me, that's resiliency. And what's not resiliency is saying, well, it's the wind, it's the sea. What can I do? It's the wind, it's the sea. So it's windy, so I had to go left. That's what it was. I had no choice. Okay. So then what happens in our lives metaphorically is when the winds are calm, we're going to start making progress. And once that wind whips up, then it blows us off course. And we say, oh, it's the wind. And then when it's calm again and we start making that progress, people say, oh, you're so resilient. And it's like, that's not resiliency. That's just survival. That's just existing. What you're doing isn't okay. Hey, Reverend Hall, happy Thanksgiving. What you're doing is not okay. It's unacceptable. Society's been telling you, oh, poor you. We understand. So tough, so hard. Yeah, it is. Now what? What are you going to do about it? I'll give you another example. My dad, as I told you, was 24 when he adopted me. The first is 17, right? Now, this is an educated man, teacher, principal, making six figures, could have lived the life that he wanted to live. But he lived in poverty because his choice was to adopt all of these children and give us homes. But he didn't complain about being impoverished. He would say, you could be poor, but you don't have to be dirty. We're going to be clean. Our yard was always clean. Our clothes were always clean. Our house was clean. We all had chores. And it's like, and there were so many of us. We all had chores every day, right? So, you had kitchen duty. Sometimes you'd have it for a week. If you got in trouble, you might have had it for a month. That was harsh with all those kids. Or your job is the living room, so you're dusting and vacuuming dang near every day, and it's like, man, there's not even a piece of lint on the floor. Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. But he was teaching us to value what we had and to take care of what we had. And that was the lesson. And that just because you were poor by financial standards, you're poor in love. And that's a lesson we don't often get. And you watch these wealthy folks, trust fund kids that are strung out on drugs, hate their parents, don't value anything. Their life is just all superficial. And you wonder, man, if I had all that money, everything would be great. And they're miserable. And they're not really good. So even though we're driving around in a blue Grand Torino with the floorboards rusting out, you didn't worry about that. Or when I was younger, we were in the green Malibu station wagon with the seats that faced the back. And we hated being the kids that had to sit in the back. So you're looking at the drivers and they're just looking at you in this broke green Malibu. So embarrassing. And he just loved it. You know, he really did a good job of teaching not to be caught up in the material things, that that's not what it was. That Jesus was the reason for the season for him. And in the conversation with Layla yesterday, I thought it was interesting because, you know, right now she's 10, so it's still Santa. But she understands that it's Jesus' birthday. But then when I ask, well, how do you reconcile it being someone else's birthday, but you get gifts? You know, I want her to start thinking and processing that. I get it. Life is hard. I want her to be a child and have her innocence for as long as she can have it. The transition is going to come. Now, the thing is we have locus of control. And one of the things that she said was, you know, I'm grateful that I'm not poor. And she's looking at that and defining that in her 10-year-old mind based on the work that she sees me do, things that she's exposed to. And we made sacrifices and decisions because of her. She couldn't do those things, so that's up to us to do. Right? She didn't ask to come into the world. So I've got to give her the best life that she can have. And not a life of excess and material things that don't mean anything. But give her the best opportunity to be successful. Give her the best opportunity for when I'm not there, when mom's not there, when grandma's not there, she'll be okay. Toys aren't going to do it. Fun ain't going to get it. Oh, it feels good to see her happy, to want her to be happy, to want her to be happy. You know, the last thing I wanted to do yesterday was return that stuff at Walmart after we've been in there for an hour and a half buying all this Christmas stuff and some of the stuff that she wanted. But there was a lesson into returning those things that she needed to have. And she also doesn't like conflict, so. Oh, happy Thanksgiving, Teresa. I'm driving, so it's hard for me to do the chats. But she has to understand that. And, you know, she doesn't like conflict, so for a minute, she got a little quiet. Like, oh, this is serious. And I'm talking to her while we're returning it. And I explained to her why we are returning it. And that you can't allow people to treat you badly, and then you're going to give them money. What I see a lot of black people do is they will, if they're badly, they'll over tip, right? And some people just do it just because, right? Do it because they feel like, I don't want you to be thinking I'm some cheap black person that doesn't tip, or I'm going to show you that I got money. And that's not going to change how they think about you. So why would you give them your hard-earned money? And sure, it's not the workers, it's Walmart, but that's the principle of it. And she needs to understand that lesson. And that even daddy in his tie is not always going to get the best service or be treated or regarded in the positions that I hold. So what she sees when she's around me a lot is, hey, Mr. Cameron, right? Employees, volunteers, things of that. People that are being respectful. But everybody in the world isn't like that. So she has to learn that lesson on how to deal with it. She can't learn it after the fact and we have a conversation about it when the moment is not there and the emotion isn't there. She needs to learn it in the moment. We don't accept that treatment. So we had to return the items. So she's quiet. I'm asking her. I explained to her why we're doing it. And then I have her repeat it to me. Why are we returning these items? She doesn't want to say in front of the folks. All right, tell me. Because that's not how we're supposed to be treated. Absolutely. We walk to the car. She's kind of quiet. I'm asking her questions. You know how our kids get. And she knows she's not in trouble. But she doesn't like the conflict. So we get in the car. We get our seatbelts on. We get our hand sanitizer going. I'm like, all right, it's 30 seconds for our hand sanitizer, right? Give her that locus of control. You tell me how it's supposed to be. And then she's good. She's good. And now I want her resiliency to be that when she experiences that, she doesn't accept that. She doesn't go along to get along. Doesn't have to be rude. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I asked questions logically because it didn't make any sense what they were telling me on why they couldn't do what they were doing. And then I made my decision. And then we moved on from it. But I want her to be resilient. I want her to be able to deal with adversity in a rational, mature way with high emotional intelligence. I wasn't happy about it. That was inconvenient. We're going to have to go somewhere else and buy those things, right? But I'd rather be inconvenient than to give you my money at that time. It's not going to happen. So I'm thankful for that. Man, I haven't been to Federal Way in a minute. A lot of folks out. It's a good thing the buses are running. Kind of a strange situation here. There's a black guy sitting at a bus stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 white people are surrounding him, standing around him in a circle. It's an odd thing to see. Maybe he's doing a magic trick. Woo! Seattle, I grew up in Seattle. So coming out the Federal Way, I didn't really know anyone living out here back then. We just used to come out to the mall and some of the other places out here to hang out. Now we're older. Friends and family live all over the place, But I got my GPS, so I'm good. So look, I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm blessed and highly favored. So in a lot of ways, every day is Thanksgiving for me. That's part of my resiliency. And I hope it could be a part of yours. Every day is not going to be great. Some are going to be really crappy. But you are blessed and highly favored. There are people that care about you. There are people that love you. And if you feel like it's not true, then there are people that you need to meet that will become those that love you. G2 is a good place for that. Sound like a church. If you don't have a church home, consider G2. Seriously, though. You don't need to be alone in 2022. Come be a part of something. I'm not going to promise you it's going to be easy. It's going to be hard. Because it's not just about doing the work. Or I should say it is about doing the work. But the trick about G2 is doing the work means working on you. That is the work. And it's very much like the Karate Kid. Wax on, wax off, paint the... You will do things that you think have no connection to your health and well-being. But it is all designed to help you experience actual resiliency. Happy everyone. I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. I will talk to you soon. Don't eat too much, though.